Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Visit El Paso is our sponsor of today's episode. El Paso is more than just a place on the map. It's where Texas begins. It's a vibrant city with unforgettable sunsets and offers a unique blend of history, culture, and natural beauty. El Paso is the perfect destination for family vacations, couples getaways, outdoor adventures, meetings, conferences, conventions, and even marathons. Our guest today is Mike Coulter. Mike is the race director for the El Paso Marathon. He has worked in the running industry for over 30 years, directing and producing road and trail races in El Paso and southern New Mexico. And he has been involved in running store retail for over 14 years. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Welcome.
We appreciate you having us. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. And you know, when I saw that the great folks from Visit El Paso had you lined up and I saw El Paso Marathon, you literally brought back a memory for me, because while I live in Las Vegas for these past 4 years, and I know the marathon is run here, hopefully when the sun is down, I think. But in Chicago, where I moved from before living here in Vegas, I lived on the last mile of the Chicago Marathon, and it was always a lot of fun. You saw the lead runners, these famous runners who just amazing, and you also saw the people that didn't matter whether they were the last runner in the field, they were out there, and everybody was just cheering them on. And the marathon is such a great event to bring a community together. And I'm really excited if you could share a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about the history of the El Paso Marathon and your role in it.
Okay, my background, I actually have an extensive background in the restaurant industry. That's how my current business partner and I met. We were actually in the restaurant business, so that I believe ties in very well with the race and running business in the hospitality aspect of it. Also logistically too. When there's a lot that goes into running a restaurant and preparing for guests and making sure they have a great experience. The two tie together. The running does as well. So while I was in the business, I got into the race business, and by creating a fundraiser for our local restaurant association. So that's kind of how I got started in it. And we started with a single race, and within a couple of years, we built it to 10. And at our heyday, we're doing as many as 70 events a year. So back about 17 years ago, they put together the El Paso Marathon Foundation with the thought in mind that we could create a world-class event that would promote health and fitness in the community, and then also provide an opportunity for local nonprofits to raise funds. So after the second year, I was approached to become director for the event, and I've been with them ever since.
Okay. Now, is being the director of the El Paso Marathon, is this a full-time job, or you have multiple hustles going on in your day-to-day life?
I can't seem to get away from the hustles. I sometimes I feel like I created that side hustle thing, because I've been involved in, again, while I was in the restaurant business, I had a race business on the side. So, but I work this event all year round. Yeah, we try to open registration the day after the race ends. So
Okay.
it's a full-time gig.
Okay. Now, with the El Paso Marathon, you just shared, that was going to be one of my first questions, is how long has the marathon been around? 17 years. That's pretty significant. And how have you seen the interest in coming to El Paso, running in this marathon? How has it evolved over the years? What's different between 17 years ago and what's hopefully going to be coming up shortly this year?
Yeah. Well, when we first our first couple of years, it was a marathon and a half marathon. And in the third year, we added a 5K. I kind of felt like it was necessary to have a people's race. And so that's what we've seen over the years, that we have people enter as a, take become involved with the event by participating in the 5K and then move on to the half and then to the full. Um, One of the things that we've seen over the years is how the running community locally has grown. Yeah, back in the day when I was running a couple marathons a year, there were there weren't that many marathoners in El Paso. So most of our people, percentage wise, for the marathon distance came from out of town. Now we still have a lot of visitors come to El Paso in February to run the race, but so many of our people locally are now running the distance. Whereas again, that's grown over the years. That's grown over the years. So that's encouraging. The one thing that we're excited about, I mean, that we feel like we can really provide is a great experience. In February, most of Middle America and the East Coast it's
A little cold.
a lot of running going on. Let's put it that way. So they get out here in this climate and they think it's the greatest thing. And you can tell who the visitors are on race day when they start taking off their jackets and their beanies and their gloves because it's so warm. And for us, it's a little cool because we start race day it's in the 30s and it'll get up to 50 or 60 degrees by race end. So again, it's a
So
great place to run.
when you have that type of temperature change, and again, this is probably just a nit question, but
Uh,
I can see you're bundled up in the 30 degrees, and I know you warm up very quickly when you're running in this type of sport, but where do the clothes go?
they go to the side of the road. That's part of our FAQs on the website is how to dress and expect it to be throwaway because it's you don't want to wear your Sunday best out there on the course because you're probably not going to get it back if you leave it.
Okay.
And and most of the time that's what it is. And we take those items and donate them to local charities. So
Okay.
that's standard. When I ran Chicago, I threw away gloves. It was 30, I believe it was 37 at race start, which was perfect. And it didn't get a whole lot warmer than that, but your body temperature elevates. So yeah,
Sure.
I didn't need the gloves and I didn't expect to find them afterwards. So
Yeah,
I
okay.
just toss them to the side.
Excellent. Now, as the community of runners that are starting out in, are they starting just like other neighborhood groups to help people just learn how to run the marathon or run a 5K, then a half K, then a 1K?
Well, given our weather, again, that's another thing. I time races, so I network with timers all over the country, and a lot of people their season ends in November, and then they don't really start much up until March or April. Where down here at least a race every weekend, November through January. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to run year round. And as far as groups go, that's one thing. That's another thing that we've seen an explosion of within the last 2 years or so are these really, really big groups getting together and and working with each other and training and preparing for big events. So that's really encouraging to see um, Saturday group runs of 50 or 60 people. That's a group run. And so those people network and kind of within that group, you might have people training for 2 or 3 different distance events. So there's plenty of them. There's about 4 or 5 good sized groups here in town.
Okay. And how many organized races are there in El Paso, whether it's prior to or after the
Marathon.
marathon?
Well, again, I'm kind of the only guy in town as far
Okay.
as timing and production here in El Paso,
Yeah.
and we did 52 events last year.
52.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and there you could add probably another 10 to that we didn't do. So
Okay.
60 plus a year.
Okay.
Um, again, the weather's the only time it's not really super to run is June to the end of August, but they still
Okay.
happen. We're still
Yeah.
doing it. We just do them earlier in the morning.
Okay. Now I'm going to have a question about preparation for the run, but
Sure.
in a minute. But I am curious, what is the route like for the marathon? I'm thinking in Chicago, you ran literally in all of the major neighborhoods
Right.
around that. Is it 26.6 miles? Uh,
26.2, yeah. Yeah.
26.2. Well, I had the 26 right. What does that route look like in El Paso?
Well, we've changed the route many times since we've started. And that's been a goal of ours is whether it's an out and back or a point to point is to feature uh, the distinct different neighborhoods that we do have here. And we do. It's again, as you pointed out earlier, this is a historic city. It's a very bicultural, by community. We're right on the border of Mexico. There's almost no distinction whatsoever. And back in when I was growing up and up until the 2000s, really early 2000s, it was very easy to go across the border. We actually have uh, a race, a 10K that starts in El Paso and then goes into Mexico
Oh,
and finishes
really?
at the top of the bridge. Yes,
Oh, wow.
the
Okay.
international 10K. And back in before 2001, there was a 15K that went into Juarez and then came back and finished in the United States. But with safety concerns, they make us finish at the top of the bridge. But I guess my point is that this is such a rich cultural
Mhm.
city. There's just so much to it that that's our goal is to expose people to that. And we're a we're kind of like Vegas in the sprawl of it. I know that there's the strip and that area downtown kind of thing, but that city sprawls, right?
Mhm.
Well, El Paso is the exact same thing. We were over 600,000 people in El Paso. You put us together with Juarez, and there's over 2 million, and
Okay.
so that stretches it out. So we've got so many neighborhoods to expose people to. So that's kind of our goal is to do that.
Okay.
Last year, the last 2, 3 years, we actually started in historic San Elizario
Okay.
and to downtown. So people have the opportunity to run past 3 different missions as they headed towards the finish line.
Okay.
We've run through Fort Bliss. We've started at the top of Trans Mountain Road, which the elevation up there is 5290, and then they ran to downtown and ran through again like they ran through Fort Bliss, and so that's our goal is just to expose people to the different historic neighborhoods. The other point I wanted to make is that the locals, believe it or not, will isolate themselves in their neighborhoods, and they're not even aware of these other neighborhoods until they run the race. And so we get those comments afterwards as well. It was really neat to run through this area. I've never been there. I don't know anything about it. So get that personal touch that you experienced at the finish line, right? You get these people
Yeah.
going through the neighborhood and they don't get downtown, right? They live out in the suburbs or whatever. So the locals love it. And certainly the people that come to visit the El Paso, because the same thing, if they've come in for business, they're at a convention or a conference, they stay downtown, they do their 2 or 3 days and then they're gone. This is an opportunity for people to really see the city.
Okay. Now I am curious, just given the location of El Paso and it's yeah, obviously at the borders with Mexico,
Mhm.
but and I had the superintendent Cesar Mendez of Franklin Mountains on the podcast a couple
Mhm.
weeks ago. His episode will be published next week. I'm curious, does the state park play any role in the route of the marathon and
No.
the outdoors?
Unfortunately, no, because that would require us to have a trail aspect
Okay.
to it.
Okay.
And that's something that we try to educate people about, is that the Franklin Mountain State Park is the largest urban park in the nation.
Mhm.
And people don't get it. They don't understand it. They're just used to this big mountain right in the middle of our town, which is it's a it's a navigation device that a lot of us use,
Mhm.
and but we're just unfamiliar that that's a state park, and it's a big state park, and it's beautiful. So we try to educate people, the locals and the visitors as well, that while they're here, get out there and enjoy it. And that's another thing that you mentioned, that one of the things I do is time and direct some trail races locally.
Mhm.
And that's our goal, is just to expose people to that. And we, in the last few years, we've seen people really kind of tune into that and become aware of it. And we've seen that aspect of running really take off and grow in the last couple of years.
Okay. So the marathon itself is going to be on the streets of
Correct.
El Paso, perhaps
Awesome.
up to the bridge, but trail running is and
Awesome.
racing there is something that's another piece of that's growing, but it's separate.
Correct. 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 That's right.
Okay.
And again, running in El Paso, you cannot not notice the mountain.
Of course. Of
You
course.
can. So but
How
it's go ahead.
no, I'm curious, how many besides yourself, how big of a team is needed to pull off a race like the El Paso Marathon?
Well, race day weekend, uh, we have we have at least, the minimum number it takes is 300 volunteers. When I say race day weekend, because the Saturday before the race, we have a health and fitness expo this year, which will be back downtown at the convention and visitors, the convention center, where your conference will be, I imagine. And so that between those 2 days, we have a minimum of 300 volunteers that it takes. In addition to that, we have 19 water stations on the course. Those 19 water stations are staffed by local nonprofits that are competing for cash prizes. And the minimum per station is 10 people. So there's another minimum 190 people out there on the course that are cheering people on, providing valuable support in terms of distributing water and electrolytes and all other sorts of things, and entertainment as well. We're a local event. We're a local event that doesn't have a huge budget. So we really depend on those people out on the course to help us provide the entertainment and the motivation for people to make it from point A to point B.
Now, it's funny, but you just said something that brought back a really cool memory. And the show is about my guests. And sometimes I have this habit, Mike, of making it a little bit about me. But you said the entertainment. And a long time ago, when I was first moving to Chicago and working with a company, and I remember reaching out to the Chicago public schools to get them to volunteer the high school bands. And
Uh-huh.
there's a dozen or more high schools in Chicago, and
Right.
we had bands literally
Uh-huh.
at wherever the water stations were, or
Right.
those
Right.
those key checkpoints. And I think that's cool because whether it's the high school, whether it's the faith base, whether it's neighborhood,
Mhm.
native, music. There's
Right. Right.
all those different flavors are coming into play wherever you are on the race
Mhm.
course.
When we started this concept of engaging the local nonprofits to provide that entertainment, it was kind of in response to a big national franchise that had the budget to pay for rock and roll bands to be at every mile. We don't have that kind of budget,
Yeah.
but we've got a lot of really talented, culturally rich people here in town that are more than willing to get out there and strut their stuff. And it can't, like you said, it can be from the high school band to the Rotary Club. Um, so it just, there's just this wide variety of, we've had folklorico dancers, we've had mariachis, we've had live rock and roll bands, DJs. One of our water stations had a Barbie theme last year. So for selfies, and it motivated a lot of people. But anyway, it's a good time. And again,
Right.
it provides that vehicle for the community to get involved and cheering people on as they go through the neighborhoods.
I love it. Now, I recall in Chicago when people are coming into town, whether it's coming from the suburbs or they're flying in and they're spending money at the hotels and eating, but they're always going to McCormick Place, which is where everybody gathered to pick up their registration, their bib, and their merchandise bag, their merch bag. So I'm
Mhm.
curious, what's in the El Paso Marathon merch bag? I mean, for the runners that register.
Uh, Anything we can get. Well, that event takes place again at the convention center this year, which is nowhere near the size of McCormick, but it's the same concept. Yeah, we just engage our sponsors to give us free giveaways, and it just varies from year to year what you're going to find in there. But again, we try to provide a great experience for our half marathon sponsor, Raiz. The credit has graciously sponsored our bag every year for the last maybe 8 years, and so they're going to get a bag, and then we just get as much stuff as we can get in there, and it varies. It can be from financial institutions to just information about local races, shaving cream, you name it, all sorts of what we try to gear it to fit high health and fitness, but we'll take whatever we can get.
Okay. Okay. I'm curious, given the nature of the race, you've been at it 17 years now.
Uh,
Where are the runners come from out of the contiguous United States, in Canada, in Mexico? Where else are you seeing runners coming in saying, "I'm running El Paso"?
from out of country,
Yeah.
oh, we've had it from Australia, Germany, uh, Italy, France. You know, you get that random connection, people, and virtually that's a few years ago we had this major event, right, where people couldn't gather. Uh, we still had a live event. We were the last major marathon to take place in 2020, and then we still put one on in 2021. We had to exercise a lot of caution and a lot of protocols and stuff like that in order to do that. It was a much smaller event,
Mhm.
but we expanded our reach by offering it virtually. And we've continued to do that because I've shipped last year, I shipped packet to packets to Germany and the Philippines. There's people out way out of market that want to be involved with the event. So it varies year by year where people are going to come from. But primarily out of country, it's Canada and heavy Mexico, and
Okay.
not just across the border, far into Mexico, Mexico City area, and Guadalajara, and Torreon, and Monterrey. So all over Mexico, they come into El Paso.
Okay. Now, I want to shift a little bit and talk about the race timing. How does that work? I mean, how do you run that part of your business? And because I know the timers are crucial to the success of the race, the start, the
Abs-
finish, knowing how much farther you have to go.
abs-
How does that part of the business run for you?
Well, we've always been a Boston qualifier, and to the non-runner, that doesn't mean anything. It just kind of you really can't make that connection to how important that is. But that to a lot of people, that's very important. That's why I ran Chicago,
Mhm.
is I wanted to go to Chicago. It's a flat, fast course. It's low elevation, and I felt like I could run the time up there, and that's why I went.
Mhm.
It's a long way from El Paso to Chicago, and it's not just an overnight trip.
No.
Uh, People go to great expense. So one, your course has to be accurate, and then you have to provide accurate timing that people can trust. And so the chip timing is how we do it. There's an electronic chip attached to everybody's bib. We've got split mats out on the course, uh, picking up their halfway points, 10K points to verify that they're running the course,
Okay.
and then also an accurate finish time. So
Yeah, we don't want our Rosie Ruiz,
no, sir.
in the race.
No, sir. So we've got about six. We've had as many as six chip mats out on the course, depending on the course.
Okay.
Again, we've had so many different courses. So anyway, but
All
we
right.
want to provide that opportunity for people to see how they're doing.
Okay. What are you seeing when folks come into town for a conference, like for the OWAA. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we run the gamut of gender, race, disability. And actually, that's another question I wanted to ask you. Do that afterwards.
Sure.
But, we need some help. Oh, I forgot this. I need this. What do you see folks coming into your store requesting? I mean, do they I doubt they would buy a new pair of shoes because they forgot them, because it takes a while to break in shoes,
Yeah, yeah.
but maybe a nice pair of wool socks. Well, what do people typically buy when they're coming in? They want to go running on the streets, but they forgot something and they come into your store.
Well, take a nickel for every time that somebody did come in and ask for shoes, because it happens.
Okay.
It happens where that last thing, I forgot to pack the running shoes. So they'll come in, they're in for a weekend, or even somebody stationed here, TDY for whatever, whether it's military or they're a contractor or whatever, and they're going to be here for a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's worth their while. And they're that committed to running that they got to get their run in. So they'll come in and get shoes. But very common is nutrition. They're coming in, they're going to plan on a long run, and they need gels or gummies or whatever to help them get through that run, or electrolyte mix or something like
Mhm.
that. That's real common. And one of our nicknames for El Paso is Sun City.
Mm,
So we get a lot of people coming in looking for caps,
okay.
and then locally branded things, shirts, t-shirts or shorts or whatever, that's got kind of, they can take back home and show people where they've been. So
Mhm.
that's real common, real common. And
Okay.
then they're coming in for advice. I'm staying downtown. Where should I run? Or I'm going to be here for a few days. Where are some places where I can go run? Or they're asking how they can get connected to a group on a Saturday or something.
Okay.
So
Very good.
that's
So
probably
I'm
number two.
curious, with your running for yourself,
Uh,
what are your if you're going to go visit a new city, what are your go-to pieces of equipment, or maybe even it's the gel or the gummy, but what's your go-to? Like, I've got to have these so I can go out and have a good run.
uh, shoes, shorts, and a top. And then just depending on where I'm headed, then you can add to that. I'm going to need a light jacket. I'm going to need gloves. I'm going to need a beanie where I can pull down over my ears, or I'm going to need tights. So you kind of prep that in advance. You look at the weather, what it's what the typical weather is for that time of year, and pack accordingly. But number one is shoes, and then shorts. Of course, socks, but
Okay,
those are the two big ones. I'll tell you, if you don't mind me telling a personal story of my
please.
reading partner and I. We were in the restaurant business, and we were both on the state board of the restaurant association, and really looking forward to going down to a big state board meeting in Austin. And now which is a great place to run. They've got really, really runner friendly all over the place, but particularly Town Lake. And we were staying really close to Town Lake, really looking forward to getting off the plane, going to the hotel, and going for a run. We get in the hotel, and I'm getting ready. I'm all geared up, and I hear my partner uh, express some displeasure. He had packed two left shoes. Well, that didn't stop us, because we got in a cab and went directly to the local running store, bought a brand new pair of shoes, and we were out on the trail after that. So committed runners, if they forget their shoes, they're going to go in and buy a pair of shoes.
I love that. Back in Chicago, when I was prior to podcasting or even coaching, I was consulting. And I
Uh,
remember going into O'Hare or going into Midway Airport, you could always tell who the marathon runners were. They were walking a little slow, but they always had their shoes, you kind of tied at the lace, and they were on their carrying them from their shoulder.
yes,
Or
sir. Do not
I
forget the shoes.
I love that. I love that.
Get the shoes.
you know, like as we look back, or as you look back in your career, and really investing a lot of time and energy, and just having the success that you've been having with the El Paso Marathon and the other areas of your work, what's your aha moment as you look back and you say, wow, what I'm doing is making an impact? What's your aha moment?
That's really, um, they're, um, and I don't remember the answer I provided for you, but I have that aha moment almost every weekend because you get to see people at the finish line that have spent some time getting there. And it wasn't the 15-minute 5K, or it wasn't the 30-minute 5K, or the 4-hour marathon, or the 2 hours and 30-minute marathon. It it there's so much that goes into getting there that when you see that person cross the line, you know how much they put into it. So that's the aha moment. That's when you go, this is worth it, because that finish was important to that person, so important to that person. They invested in time into preparing for that moment. They invested some sort of money, whether it's just an entry fee, or it's going out and getting the shoes and the gear to be able to go out on race day. So that aha moment happens frequently. The other thing is I work in my timing and production business. I work exclusively with nonprofits. So that happens every event. That at the end of the day, there's a little bit that goes into their kitty that they didn't have beforehand. And that's important to everybody. So,
Okay. Very good. I'm also curious before we do our final segment, with our conference coming up, the OWAA's annual conference, there's going to be about 250 members. And I imagine every once in a while there's a conference like ours coming into the city, maybe a little bigger, maybe a little smaller. When they come to you via, say, Visit El Paso, and they say, hey, we'd love for you to be a part of this conference, what are some of the activities that you would offer to plan out and help execute for these folks who are coming in? They want to experience El Paso. Maybe some of them are runners
mm,
and are going to want to get out in the street and maybe take advantage of your expertise. What are some of the things that you would plan?
uh, steer them towards, you mean?
Or
Or
maybe even help organize for us?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. See that's again, I mentioned earlier that I network with a lot of guys all over the country, a lot of people from all over the country, guys and girls, um, and they do corporate events all the time.
Okay.
And I only do one a year. So, and I've done it for several years, but there's only one that we've done. And so it's very common for my compatriots and colleagues in other markets where they do that all the time. I'd be more than willing to do that, um, to put together a 5K or 10K or whatever for an event. And especially with the partnership that we've got with Visit El Paso, Destination El Paso, we can make that happen very
Okay.
easily. And downtown El Paso is a great place to run early in the
Okay.
morning. It's wonderful, a place to run. So we'd be more than happy to do that. And the other thing that we can do is steer them in the right direction as far as connecting with groups. They're going to be doing group runs. I'm more than happy to do that.
All right. Now I know in the 3 days of our conference, each morning there's a run and walk 30, 45 minute gathering. I'm usually in bed or
Uh-huh.
having a cup of coffee, sitting out just looking at the sunrise. But I may you're really you're making the mornings in El Paso sound pretty good on the streets. I may have to. I don't know if I could run, but I certainly can walk fast. But
Absolutely, absolutely. And visit the resources. There's plenty to see downtown. If you're probably staying right across the street from the center, and there is plenty to see. You get a great walk in and some really cool old buildings to look at. It's a great place to run downtown.
I love it. I love it. Mike, any final insight that you would like to share with our audience, just given again your background, your experience? Could be a book, a quote that you would like to share with our listening audience, and especially members of the OWAA who perhaps are still on the fence about coming to El Paso, or just in general about how your this love that you have for running really, but it really helps us in life. So, what's your insight to go?
Yeah, it's yeah, a, a, a A body in motion stays in motion is number one, And that just get out there and go. And it doesn't matter how fast, it doesn't matter how far, but you just get out and go. And El Paso is a great place to do it, whether it's on the roads or whether it's on the trails. El Paso is a great place to get out and go.
All right. Very good. Now, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and the El Paso Marathon, where are the best places to go?
Direct everybody right to the website, elpasomarathon.org, and you gain more information about our event, when it's taking place, how to get involved, and you can reach me directly through there. So,
okay, very good. And I know you're on Facebook and Instagram, so we'll provide the backlinks to the website as well as to your social sites. Mike, I appreciate you taking time to join us on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, and I look forward to seeing how the El Paso Marathon plays a role in our annual conference this coming September. So thank you again.
I hope to meet you in person when you get to town. So
You
looking
got
forward
it.
to it. Looking
You
forward to
got
it.
it.
All
Thank
righty.
you. Listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a very quick close, and you and I can have a final chat.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we've just been chatting with Mike Coulter. He is the race director for the El Paso Marathon. And yeah, I got to say, just our prior interviews and just getting a flavor of what is El Paso, what's it like, and just the culture, the cuisine, the music, the nature all around us. And now what I love about Mike's work is he helps plan this wonderful event, this marathon that takes you through the city streets all around El Paso. So as he had shared, there's some folks that don't get out of their neighborhood, and it's not until they take up running and perhaps run this full marathon that they realize there's a lot more out there. And I'm very excited to get to know more about the city streets, and hopefully it may not be a run. It could be definitely be a walk, but I hope we get a chance to get out there with El Paso Marathon, and with their help, see the best that El Paso has to offer. Now, just a reminder, folks, we want to thank Visit El Paso for sponsoring this episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series. And thanks to their support, we can introduce you to guests like Mike to begin planning your El Paso getaway or outing. Visit the Visit El Paso website at visitelpaso.com. As for us, you can find this episode on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. And also you can find us whatever podcast directory you love, whether it's Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Just do a search for Outdoor Adventure Series and you will find our latest episode. Until next time, folks, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we look forward to having you join us for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care.